Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to wait just a few more minutes or a couple more minutes, let's say, for anybody that might join. Just make sure everybody has a chance to settle in, and then we'll go ahead and get started and make sure that we keep this timely so everybody can continue on with their afternoon. And one additional thing while we're waiting, I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to ask any questions along the way. So that could be relevant specifically to today's topic. I know we're going to kind of tie in today's topic of Azure Advisor with some of the Azure policy and graph resource graph topics as well. Just so if you have questions on any of those, we'll try and save some time and make sure that we circle back and can help answer any questions or have a quick dialogue. All right. I think since we're 2 minutes after here, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate everybody joining us again today. This is the third of 3 webinars in our series. I'm calling it Azure Efficiency Hacking. And today's topic is on Azure Advisor and workbooks. So Cam from Cloud Service had a conflict come up, so he's not going to be able to join us. But we're excited to partner with Cloud Service to talk about this topic that we're all passionate about here at Float and Cloud Service, which is how to achieve operational and financial efficiency in Microsoft Azure. So many companies that rush to the cloud for agility and scale are now trying to figure out how to manage costs and keep engineers in their guardrails and in bumper lanes to remain as efficiently as possible. So today we're going to walk through one of the tools that we haven't covered yet, which is Azure Advisor, and highlight some of the best practices that will help you gain real-time visibility and into optimization of your cloud resources. So if you're just joining us and you haven't been on any of the previous webinars, I'll highlight Cloud Service. They're a top 1% Microsoft partner. They have expertise in Microsoft licensing, support, and implementation up and down the Microsoft tech stack. So if you're not familiar with them, highly recommend reaching out and just brokering an introduction to learn a little bit more about them. And then Float, we exist really to maximize everyone's cloud investment in Microsoft Azure. So our goal is to help customers really identify opportunities for efficiencies, but also to build those in from a maturity level so that this isn't kind of a one-time exercise or some infrequent exercise to try and go back and remediate things. We're actually putting proactive governance and maturity in place. So that's really the objective of these webinars is how do we get better visibility? How do we establish guardrails and really unlock and empower engineering teams to work smarter, faster, and more cost effectively? So same slides that I've covered previously, but what is cloud efficiency? Well, maximum cloud efficiency is really where you're delivering the highest achievable business value at the lowest necessary cost, risk, and operational effort. And it's really not just about saving money. It's aligning and optimizing every aspect of the cloud relative to business objectives. And so we've come up with this matrix for how to kind of quasi measure what is maximum cloud efficiency. And just like I stated, it's kind of a top and up and to the right metric that we're shooting for. But every business is going to have its own unique kind of standards and business requirements, and so therefore maximum efficiency becomes this top and to the right goal, but there are forces that are continuously pulling you down and to the left. So those forces can be changes in business requirements. It could be, just waste over time that accumulates. It could also be new capabilities that are released within the cloud that are actually driving you relative to that target of maximum efficiency down to the left. So we want to try and establish, again, the highest performance, reliability, security, and operational excellence at the lowest possible costs and operational effort and risk. So the truth, like we stated before, the work is really hard and it never stops. So the goal is to put these proactive measures in place, leveraging where we can the native tool sets that Microsoft offers to help us continue to maintain that position up and to the right. So again, today we're going to cover Azure Advisor and workbooks. And if you're unfamiliar with Azure Advisor, a quick highlight of what it is. Azure Advisor gives you personalized, actionable recommendations across the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework. Those pillars are cost, performance, security, reliability, and operational excellence. And this ties really well overall with a couple of the webinars that we've done in the past. So if you're looking for a little bit more information on well-architected framework or Azure policy or resource graph, go back and watch the previous couple because those have really strong tie-ins to Azure Advisor. So Azure Advisor can help with recommendations for identifying underutilized resources. It could help with strengthen security posture with those recommendations. It could also help with implementing best practices around governance for monitoring workloads and managing those workloads more efficiently. So the workbooks that we want to touch on today, these are all workbooks that are in preview, but there is a fair amount of value that you can derive from these. So the first one is the Azure Cost Optimization Workbook. It serves as a centralized hub for some of the most commonly used tools that can help drive utilization and efficiency goals. It offers a range of recommendations, including some of the Azure Advisor recommendations, and that include identification of idle resources and managing improperly deallocated virtual machines, just as an example. So we'll touch a little bit more on that in the demo, but that's the first workbook. The second workbook is the reliability workbook. It's also in preview, like I mentioned. And really, this focuses on the reliability pillar of the well-architected framework. So again, it kind of aggregates some of the recommendations that you can find within Azure Advisor, and it provides a good starting point to evaluate the posture of the reliability posture of your applications to assist and to help assess risks and plan improvements. The third workbook that we'll highlight is the Service Retirements Workbook. This one is we use it all the time across our customers. So this is a great single centralized resource level view of service retirements. So Microsoft is announcing new retirements all the time. This workbook is going to help you centralize all of those announcements, and it'll also help you assess the impact specific to your resources, and then you can evaluate options and plan for migration from the services that are being retired. And you can do that well in advance so that you're not waiting for something to break and then opening a support ticket, maybe with thousands of other people who have also waited till the last minute. So the last thing before I kick it over to Chris is, Azure Advisor and the workbooks are not a magic bullet. So some things to be aware of. So there is a context blindness where Azure Advisor doesn't know why a resource exists. It only sees the usage patterns. So, for example, a VM that looks idle might be part of a DR strategy, or it may be part of a scheduled batch job. So there's various different reasons where you want to take the recommendations and then make sure that you have the context from the specific cloud engineering team so that you can always validate the recommendations with the workload owners. There's some limited customization in the workbooks and Azure Advisor in general. So if you use Azure policy and tagging in parallel, you can help to enforce context-aware governance. There's also, a latency of data. This is referring to there's either a 7-day or a 30-day usage trend that's typically used with the Azure Advisor recommendations. So you want to make sure to cross-check that with any longer-term metrics, whether you have a log analytics set up or have it set within a workbook that you've configured yourself. So the last thing I'll touch on here is the false sense of completeness. Again, this is not a magic bullet. It's not holistic. This is good starting point. And so that's the main thing that I want you guys to take away from today's webinar is these are tools, these are free tools available to all Azure customers. They're not going to be, again, the magic bullet or provide a full contextual view of the recommendations. And, there's really no ownership or workflow built in. So trying to make sure that any of the recommendations that you are managing or pushing down through the team, you want to make sure that you have a workflow established to drive accountability. And if you don't have that, that's certainly something that Float and Cloud Service can provide. So with that, I'm going to kick this over to Chris. Chris Capizzuto, Senior Cloud Architect, is going to walk through a technical demo.
Thank you, Brian. Let me find the right window. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is as you log into Azure for your first time. You will always get me by this screen, which is the home page. From within this screen, it's really easy to find Advisor. In this case, since I already accessed it, it's going to be here on my list of recently accessed services. But I can just type Advisor on the search navigation bar on the top. There we go. And then it will be, of course, that service that Microsoft have been renamed on a couple of years. So once you navigate to the Advisor, you get met with this dashboard filled with information. And keep in mind, this is a subscription, a demo subscription that I use. They only have 5 virtual machines. They're deployed, they're really small. I use this as a sandbox environment to try things out. And those machines, I always have them running because I run a lot of testing with licensing. So even with my basic deployment, I already can see a lot of information on the screens. I can see cost information. I can see security score. In this case, it's telling me that I don't have security recommendations. I can see reliability score and high, medium, and low impact findings. I can see operational excellence, and I can see performance. And if you're familiar with the context of the well-architected framework, this is all it's doing. It's the Microsoft well-architected framework. It's a version of the cloud well-architected framework where we have a series of pillars. In this case, these 5 pillars. And from these pillars, there are recommendations inside each one of these. So what Microsoft does is they scan your system the same way the Azure policies work. They will scan your system looking for recommendations that could potentially be on violation of any of those foundational policies. In my case, let's go to the cost. If I want to navigate to any of these cards, I can click on the card here on the score, or I can click on the left panel navigation bar on the recommendations. I have the same pillars, but I also have an option to see them all. Also, if you see here on the top between the heading and the cards, I have filters because this is currently looking, I can filter by a series of subscription. Maybe you have 100 subscriptions and you only want to evaluate 3 of them. So you can filter that out here. You can also make sure that you're only looking for the state in terms of active and you haven't postponed anything. You can filter by the resource group or the type of the resource that is being evaluated in those. If I, for example, filter here to virtual machines, you can see that my scanning gets recommended, recalculated. And now I only have reliability and operational excellence on my findings. I'm going to remove this filter. And of course, as always, as is common on all these views on Azure, I have the capability to add other filters, maybe by impact, resource tag, which is one of the best practices, right? Maybe I only have a couple subscriptions and I have my products divided by a business unit. So I can look up those tags here and I can filter my recommendations by those tags. Now, let's go and see what these recommendations show. So this panel of recommendations is going to be shared across the board. They all look the same. It's just going to be a list, a table list with the findings. And what's going to change between every single category is the columns itself. In this case, I have a high impact recommendation. And in this case, it's telling me to consider virtual machine reserve instances to save on-demand costs. And in this case, it's telling me that I can save up to $300 a year. That is $300 a year on a subscription that costs me about $100 a month. Yeah, about $120 a month. So there's some significant savings there. By applying that, I could be saving almost 2 to 3 months worth of cost. Going back to the advisor, going back to that recommendation, and then it's telling me, hey, this is the last time that this recommendation was updated, because it could be, hey, I already reserved this. This doesn't get refreshed every single time. It's telling me the last time that this got refreshed, and in this case, because I open Advisor today and I haven't opened it in a couple of days, it automatically refreshed today. And then it's telling me, like, where is this subscription that is getting impacted by that service? If I go ahead and navigate to that recommendation, we can see that it breaks down the recommendation itself. It's telling me, hey, on this subscription, you have 4 resources for this line item and 1 resource for this line item. You want to apply 4 reservations on South Central US and 1 reservation on East US. And then it's telling me the term is making this assumption of the potential savings based on a 3-year commitment, and then a look back period of 30 days. So it's looking back at the utilization that make sure that this machine has been running at least for the last 30 days. So this is something to watch out for, right? Because Azure, these advisor screen, they are not AI. They are not super smart when it comes to providing these recommendations. This is just looking at plain numbers. So if I'm an accounting firm and I'm looking at this during tax season while I'm scaling up all my resources and I have ABD deploys for my accountants to be able to log into my systems and all my contractors and I have all my workloads running during that tax season and has been 30 days, it may recommend to reserve things that are not going to be here next month whenever I scale down. So that's one of the things that you need to take on consideration as you look at these recommendations, because even though Azure is context aware, it's limited context aware. It only knows what is on Azure and the information that it has based on the parameters. So from here, I can take an action, right? I can postpone this or I can dismiss it. I can also click on the action itself, and then it will load up the screen, preload the screen to help me commit to these reservations. Keep in mind, if you're working with a CSP, we don't want you doing this yourself. So your CSP will help you. In this case, Cloud Service will help you making these reservations and ensuring that as part of the CSP program, that those reservations will get placed in place. They may have enabled for you direct reservations, so you will be able to see these screens and you will be able to commit to the reservations yourself. If you don't see these screens, just keep in mind, it may be that your CSP wants to be able to help you with this process. So you create a support ticket with them, and then you can come into the reservation. So not all the options that you're going to be seeing here are going to be available to you as part of the CSP agreement. However, the recommendations will be here. And Microsoft will tell you, hey, we recommend that you reserve this because according to that last 30 days, it makes sense. Here you will have a basic description alongside with documentation that basically details what Azure reservations and savings plans are. I can download these on a PDF for a CSV if I have maybe 1,000 of these and I want to break it down, or I need to present this to C tier or another department. So these export buttons are really useful. And I can say, hey, you know what? We're in the middle of tax season. These recommendations may not be accurate. Let me postpone it. And then what Azure is going to do is just going to say like, hey, when do you want me to remind you about this? Maybe 3 months from now? Sure. And as soon as I click postpone, this recommendation disappears. And go back to that advisor and looking at my POL. It does take some minute to refresh. So of course, it's still going to be showing here, even though that I'm filtered just to active. But if I navigate back, at some point, it will Azure will refresh and making sure that that recommendation doesn't show anymore. Back to my overview. We have security, and then we have reliability. What can we see on reliability? So on the foundation benchmarks, I have, in this case, it's looking for use availability of zones for better resiliency. And if I click here, I will see that none of my virtual machines are set up with availability zones. So this strategy of providing recommendations works really well if I work with action items, but it's really not giving me a 360 view of my environment. This gives me action items so I can work with them, so I can take action. It's providing description and it's providing recommendations. There's also full documentation on this. Sometimes, there we go. Here we can see like the full panel recommendation of what is this policy about, how is it, and then how do I actually make this operation or these actions to him. And it gives you a full panel of instructions that your engineering teams, your CI/CD, or your platform engineer can use to ensure that these recommendations get met. And then whenever it scans again, it won't be able to find those recommendations. I can also create alerts. And this is really useful because maybe, let me choose a better one. Security, nothing in security, no active. No, I haven't postponed anything here. Maybe I want to keep an eye on any new virtual machine that is running 24/7 every 30 days. And if there's anything new that comes new that I haven't reserved, I want to get an email. So I can create here, hey, create an advisor alert. And here it's going to ask me, where are you storing that alert? I'm going to choose my RG test. And then the category, what exactly am I alerting? I'm choosing that, the impact level. In this case, that one is a high. This is as most technical that this particular session is going to get to, but we can create an action group. And what an action group allows me to do is create triggers that basically are going to happen if that alert gets triggered. In this case, I can do test here. This is a test. No, that's too low. Okay. All right. So what notification type am I sending? I can send an email, SMS, push notification, voice notification. I'm going to go ahead and do an email. It's the simplest one. I'm going to do demo, DBK. Here is where I can configure the SMS message or maybe a Azure mobile app notification, which is that push notification service that you get through Azure communication services, or I can send, like, instead of an SMS, the same message can be displayed through a voice. So I save that. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a name, email demo. I'll go to actions. In this case, if I wanted to run an automation or I wanted to trigger an Azure function, I could do those things too. Maybe I want to be able to automatically reserve that. And if I have infrastructure engineers that can codify that for me, I can then run an runbook automation that makes that reservation for me dynamically, or that corrects the finding immediately. So I don't have to go and start chasing those recommendations. I can also add tags to these action groups. So if I have tag policies on my environment, this is time to add all those tags. And I can go ahead and create. It's failing because I choose this and I wasn't supposed to choose anything here. Delete that action. There we go. Great. I'm going to go ahead and create that. All right, so now the action group is created. I can reuse this with many alerts. So if I create another one later, I can reuse the same thing. And now is the time for me to draft my message. I can say, iTunes on demo. Describe my alert. Where am I saving it? All right, create alert. Now, every time that I get one of these new, every time that I create a virtual machine and it runs for 30 days, or every time that it finds any high alert, high notification for a cost, it would automatically send me that email with that summary. So I don't have to be looking at this dashboard every day for new finding. I will get an email every time that I find something. If I go to reliability, the same way, if I go to any of these notifications, I can go and I can see. Actually, I think this is the one that I opened before. I have high, medium, and low. And any of these that I go in, right, in this case, it's telling me the resources that get affected. I can see what resources. I can see the details of the resources, like the additional detail. What is the current SKU standard? Is on this location. And the issue with the SKU is that the current SKU does not support some redundancy. That's my recommendation across all my subscriptions and all my accounts. I can click here and it will take me to that detail page that tells me what the definition is, how can I address this problem, if I have any downtime in this case, and my options for conversion. If I go to operational excellence, we can see that in this case I have two, and it's the same workflow. Basically, navigating these panels, once you see one, you have to see how all of them work with the same workflow over and over. On some subscriptions, on some recommendations, you will see, and I don't have any of those. Sometimes you will get a button that says quick fix. It's a purple button that displays right after the name. And what that means is that Microsoft have already write scripts to fix that finding. In my case, I have already addressed all of them. But if you get that button, you click on it and you will be prompted for a UI on a form that you will fill up. Once you complete that, it will basically fix that recommendation for you. Enable encryption or enable HTTPS or require secure connection. All those are elements that are basically quick fix. So with I believe including right sizing. Right sizing is another one that it's usually, depending on the size, as long as it's within the same family, it's also a quick fix. So this basically gets it for the advisor portion when it comes to recommendations. I can create digest. And this is basically saying every week, bi-weekly or monthly, I want to be able to get a digest of whichever recommendation I feel like. I want to monitor cost and I want to monitor security. Those are important to me. And I want to get this in Spanish. Please tell me they add Spanish. There we go. I want to get this on Spanish, and then I will create my alert. In this case, I already created one of this, so I can choose an existing one. So it will send that email to the demo at dbk.cloud. And then the search. And what this will do is then I will get an email every week that will give me the outstanding of my recommendations alongside with what is new and what is old and the definition of those. And then they have hyperlinks. So each time that I click on one of those, I will navigate directly to the recommendation itself. So it makes it really easy for me to be hands-off when it comes to this. And I only will see the difference. I can scan through those if something's new. And I get those emails and I don't have to live on this console every day. But maybe you do like this console and you do like what this offers, and you really want to use this to drive value on your business. So Microsoft have, on top of these views, right, they have workbooks that Brian covered a little bit earlier. But what I want to cover first before we jump to workbooks is the assessments. If you did a cloud migration, you probably went through one of these. this is a wonderful tool that Microsoft has added to be able to see your posture when it comes to the Cloud Foundation benchmark or the WAF, the well-architected framework. I can create here, and I can do mission critical well-architected review or an Azure well-architected review. And it's really cool how they have designed this. They make it's part of Azure, but it's really a form that you don't have to be on Azure. You just have to use your Microsoft ID to be able to fill up. And this allows you to delegate portions of this form and have different teams filling up the questionnaires so you can do an assessment review. I'm going to name this one demo. And I purposely using this account so we can see like the whole process if you have never done it. It says, hey, you don't have an existing assessment. Do you want to create one? I say, yeah. This fails because my account, this account is not a user. This is an Active Directory account that I have created, so it doesn't have a Microsoft Learn account. So what I can do is I can click here to register this on Microsoft Learn. Then it says, hey, log in with that user. Then it's like, I click next, right? I give it a name. I don't get to do this ever again, so make sure that I did label that correctly. And I am on the United States. Perfect, it's already created. Now I can go back here. I can go back, get assessment, here's my subscription, demo. I want to create a new one. Great. Sometimes this will error out if my account haven't been fully synchronized. So just give it a minute once it creates. So it tells me, and you keep record of this. So right now I create this assessment, right? So next year, if I'm doing another one, I can compare the two of them. So in this case, I have my assessment named demo. There's one in progress. Can go into that assessment. And it takes me to Microsoft Learn to the Azure well-architected review, which is basically a form driven by the well-architected framework. So I have here my milestones. So what type of review this is? This is a core well-architected review, or this is a Azure Machine Learning, SAP, or Azure Stack. In this case, we're talking about Azure Cloud. So let's make sure that we choose that one. What do we want to cover with this review? There's a lot of questions on each one of these forms. I am purposely just going to choose cost optimization, and this is going to tell me all the categories that I'm going to go through. And now I start the questionnaire. So how you create your culture of financial responsibility. We communicate to our financial expectations, and you have here your options to choose from. And I can say we encourage culture of continuous improvement. We train personnel, but we don't do the other two. We are currently using tags, so we are associating costs to specific business metrics. We have created budgets. We don't have workload estimates, so I really don't know how much it's going to cost until they start running. So you go through this exercise, and as the business, this will raise a lot of questions in terms of where are we standing? Did we even consider these questions as we are building out our system or as we are building a new system? It is ideal for you to do this questionnaire before you even start building. With my experience with the federal government, every time that we are migrating a workload, this is one of the exercises we go through. So once you fill up all your forms, I'm going to choose a couple no, and then I'm going to skip a couple so we can get a variety of numbers into the assessment. And keep in mind, you need to be really thorough. As you're filling this, you even have space to create notes. There's really you don't put here any IPs or any technical notes or any password. This is really open. It's tied to your Microsoft Learn account, but this is not your Azure environment.
So Chris, this is as you're clicking through, I was just going to say this is great. How would you say this is different than the because at Float we do a well-architected review. as part of every customer engagement that we run, so that we because this will help understand the context of why things were architected in the way that they were, so that as we're kind of walking alongside with our customers, we can really dig in with the context and awareness of the specific teams and environments that we're making recommendations and holding some accountability with. So how would you say that the Microsoft Learn assessment is different than maybe the floats?
So this is the foundation, right? And as you see, only for cost, there were a lot of questions, right? And so we have written automation to basically pre-populate based on your deployments some of that information. Then we help the customer with proper guidance, being able to answer those questions properly. If you're trying to fill this up by yourself and you're maybe not really technical, you're going to spend a lot of time just chasing people, trying to figure out what's the real answer for this.
Yep.
With the automation that we have written on Float, it automatically allows to see a lot of that.
Yep.
So there's two components to the well-architected framework, right? Most of the questions you have seen here were related to the business plan of your financial approach or your FinOps approach. There's another component to that, which is your technical component. It's like you said that you communicate with your stakeholders about your budget, and you said that you have configured a budget. Maybe that's outside of Azure, but it's not configured on Azure.
Yep.
So now let me help you configure in Azure. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
So here is my assessment. My review, as we expect, is on state critical. I can export all my recommendations, but this is not the end of the story. Now Microsoft is just gonna give me the review, but I also get full documentation on each one of those questions that I answer to verify the controls. And of course, as a FinOps specialist and an architect, I live on this console because every time that I need to talk to a customer, I need to review this with them. This is like the portion is like rate optimization. What is this category? So here we're talking about Azure facilitation. We have Azure reservations and we have savings plans. We can move workloads to be test dev, which they don't incur on those licensing costs, or if they have Visual Studio licenses, then automatically you get a portion of those Windows license server licenses. Hybrid benefit, license mobility. So this is where we can really help you. There's a lot of really complex subjects here. This is just one category and see how much reading there is to it. And I can go to try to figure out what license mobility is and what programs are included into that. So here now I have license mobility documentation. What can I use? What are the tricks and about this system? How do I utilize them? What are my break-even points? See, the documentation is giving you a lot of reach, and you can do all this homework by yourself, or you can pair with an expert to help you navigate this documentation, to help you navigate these assessments. So once you fill up your assessment, you get your review. We get to continue the review, finish it, or we get that status. That gives you a point in time in terms of action items of what do you have to do to your environment. And here's where you get that graph as you're filling up those scores, and you're filling up again on 3 months or next year, and you see how you're comparing based on your baseline last year. And this is really critical to improve your overall position on the cloud and ensure that you achieve cloud maturity. With that said, and this is what that assessment covers, keep in mind, we only did the Azure. We had options to do machine learning workflows, AI, SAP environment, Azure Stack, and then we also have the option to do the mission critical ones. So we're just looking at a minuscule portion of what assessments really cover. This is a huge word when it comes to the business, and it's really useful. But now I want to turn my attention for the next couple minutes to the other big tool that Azure Advisor provides, which is workbooks. Actually, I'm sorry, I jump in a subject. Before I jump into workflows, configuration, all those recommendations that you were seeing over there, it gets covered here on configuration. It's where I can tell, I want to cover these specific resource groups, and I don't want you to scan my demo policy, because I really don't want any recommendations on that. I'm aware of that resource group. But also, when it comes to virtual machines, here is what I can tell them, what my threshold of utilization is. for the right sizing recommendations. So my look back period is here set as 7 days. I can change that. Get it? And then I can say, hey, I don't want this at 7 days. I want it at 30 days. My CPU utilization, I want it at 20%. And here's the problem. The only thing that Azure used to provide right sizing recommendations is the CPU. This is where Cloud Service and Flow can help you when it comes to better tooling. We have self-developed tools that not only look at your CPU utilization, also look at your RAM, your compatibility between families in terms of the features that you're using for each VM. We look at your IOPS and throughputs. We look at your network connectivity and ensure that what we are recommending you to right size to meets all the requirements of the new machine we're recommending to. When it comes to Advisor, it's only one metric. It's a great starting point. It allows you to see, hey, I maybe need to look into these resources, but it's still not enough information to just do the right sizing. You still have to make a technical decision to ensure that you understand what this workload is doing, and that none of the other dependencies on this workload could be affected by doing a right sizing. Now to workbooks. This is my favorite tool. And if you join any of the previous webinar, we already talked about KQL. So we already talked about the underlying components on how these workbooks work. All the information that you were seeing here is something that we already covered before. This is just a way of making it pretty, giving you a view or a UI for you to be able to visualize and take action. But how these queries work and how this data got brought into perspective has been done with a language called KQL that we covered already on another webinar. Feel free to reach out, get your hands into that webinar, listen to it. It's really helpful in understanding how this works and how you can create your own workbooks yourself. Let's talk about reliability. When it comes to reliability, everybody thinks that they need a SLA of 7 nines until they see the cost. This workbook allows me to see exactly where I'm standing when it comes to my disaster recovery, my reliability, and my configuration. And if you see anything about my report, is that I have a horrible posture. I have 5 machines. Only one of my machines have availability zones configured, and it only have 1. I have 4 of them with nothing configured, not availability sets. My OS disk is set up on standard SSD LRS, not premium, which is the recommendation, and I have no backup for any of this. Of course, the reason is this is a test environment. If I accidentally click delete on one of these machines, I just have to run Terraform and deploy it again. But this gives you a really good view to understand where is your system standing. If you have 3,000 virtual machines and being able to see this on a report is extremely useful. See here, you can see the count of how many recommendations it found. It found 5 on missing backups, OS recommendation 4, non-availability sets 4, ability zones 4, and then not running 0. Means that all my machines are running. I have the same views or similar views for containers, databases, integrations, networking, load balancer, storage. In this case, storage is going to scream out at the fact that I don't have replication, and my copies are LRS or local redundant. Web and Azure Site Recovery. I don't have any of that configured, so we're not going to see much of that here. And then, of course, the resiliency scenario here is for my configuration setups. I have my primary deployments on South Central US, and then I have one little machine on East. And here is where it's saying GRS instead of GZRS, enable site recovery, enable backup policies, and my score is 0. This covers for the first workbook. Jump into the next one. Retirement service. This is by far one of my favorites, and it's because this is a problem I face with every single customer. I challenge any of you to go right now to your Azure environment, load up this workbook, and find something that you didn't know your environment. That you probably have storage accounts on TLS 1.0 or TLS 1.1, or that you have services that are on the shopping block, which means Microsoft is about to deprecate them and you didn't know about them. I still yet to find a single customer that have a good hold on this. This view gives you all the retirement schedule for Microsoft, and it have auto detection for some resources, which means not everything that is here means that it can be detected by Microsoft automatically. Some resources are based on configuration, so it won't be able to auto detect. But the beauty about this is the auto detection ones. If I select any of this, in this case, the only one I have, and we do have feedback to Microsoft to improve this, but it pops up the table on the bottom, and it will tell me exactly what storage account it is, what the failure is, and in actions, I can go to the Microsoft official documentation that tells me what's going on here. And this is where we shine. To our customers, we don't only give them documentation. We give them the CLI commands and the instructions on how to fix this. So for most of our customers, we have found hundreds of storage accounts that are running on older versions of TLS. We provide the scripts to scan the storage accounts to ensure that none of them are using the older ones. And we provide the scripts to be able to, for your engineers, to correct all the resources. Partners such as Cloud Service can help with the fact that you don't even have to do anything. We provide the scripts to them. They go ahead and run everything for you. So you have a full service when it comes to the services and how do you correct all these findings. Again, I challenged you earlier. Go to your Azure subscription, go to your advisor page and check this report. I promise you, you will find something. We have the list of services. We have the categories of retirement, right? We have other services that have already been deprecated. This means that even though that they already been deprecated, Microsoft no longer supporting them, they still allow people to have them. They still haven't fully decommissioned them to the point that they're unusable, but they are out of support. Now let's jump into the last one. And this is my cost optimization. So when it comes to FinOps, this will be your best friend. This workbook was actually developed by many Azure architects alongside with the FinOps Foundation on FinOps.org. Brian, can you say something? My headset just disconnected, and I want to make sure that I can still listen.
Yeah.
All right, I can hear you.
Okay. The FinOps Foundation at FinOps.org.
So this was between FinOps.org and Microsoft and cloud architects, including myself. I have contributions to this workbook. The rate optimization workbook will present you with opportunities to do reservations. This is something that we already saw similar. If you see, it's the same number we're looking at Advisor over there. And the breakdown is pretty much the same. We also have a workbook for Azure Hybrid Benefit, and this is focused on virtual machines, Linux, VM skill set, and then custom images. So this will tell me from the machines that I have, which ones are candidates to use Hybrid Benefit, and which ones, how many of them has Hybrid Benefit enabled. This is something that your CSP vendor can help you figure out what type of licenses you need and how to procure them to get savings. In terms of Hybrid Benefit, Hybrid Benefit for Linux, load up the Linux recommendations. This is saying is finding Linux machines that I'm paying for licensing that I could potentially have savings on. I have skill sets, custom image, and Azure Arc. And then for usage, this is where, again, come to this workbook, and I promise you will find something. Most people fail whenever they move. Most people who have one machine on status deallocate for every 1,000 because a developer shut it down on the OS instead of shutting it down properly. But here on storage account, on storage, right, you have managed this. This is where every time that you delete a virtual machine and the disk remains undeleted, and that is one of the categories that we call waste, this is where you will find them. Then moving forward, you have backups. We will tell you like, hey, this is a backup of a machine that was deleted, or a snapshot of a machine that was deleted, or a service recovery vault that have no replication set up. We have networking. This is looking for firewall with no rules, gateway with no endpoints, load balancer with no endpoints, public IPs which are not connected to anything. It's all looking for different waste spaces or things that are configured that are costing you money and you may not be even using. Databases, Cosmos and Elastic pools with no databases set up inside of them. And then sustainability, this is the carbon optimization report. There's an entire different view for carbon optimization that we could go into more detail if that's something that your business is interested in. I am at time. I went over for 5 minutes. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we appreciate all of the in-depth detail that you gave us there. Can we see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, so we covered a lot, and the goal of this is not to overwhelm folks. The goal is to help to start to educate and to highlight some of the capabilities that are here and native and really at no cost. And so we understand it's a lot, and that's part of the reason why we exist is because one of the things that we do is we help to distill all of the information, all of the capabilities down into something that is actually useful. One of the things that we see in Azure Advisor dashboards typically is hundreds, if not thousands, of recommendations that are just ignored. Most people don't even look at Azure Advisor. Um, and really, part of that is because Azure Advisor is really just a starting point. Like we said, you really can't just blindly take recommendations and then just take action on those without the risk of making mistakes. And so at Float, we can help in a number of different ways. So we can help with whether it's training, whether it's support, or whether it's really coming alongside you and putting a plan of action together. We have our own proprietary tools that can help us to really build out a plan and then to manage accountability and execution alongside that, where you get the cloud architect level resource along with the FinOps expertise. And so that's really a game changer for our customers. And that turns into real dollars of kind of a return on investment, both in cloud as well as in the investment into the float capabilities. Um, Cloud Service, like I said, is a great partner, and they can really pick up on any of the additional, whether it's cloud migration, whether it's white glove support, or whether it's really just implementing professional services on specific projects. Maybe that's Azure, leveraging Azure Fabric for your part of your data transformation strategy. So together, we bring some unique capabilities and would love to talk to anybody further that's interested in having that conversation. Let's see. So if you're interested in having that conversation, it's pretty easy to reach out to us. There's a sales at Float FinOps, sales at Cloud Service, or reach out to your account executive or myself directly. We'd love to have a conversation about how we can further help you guys and really operationalize some of the efficiencies that we highlighted today. The last piece, and if you do have questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat now. But the last piece is this isn't the last. This is the last of this webinar series. This isn't the last of the webinars that we're going to hold. We think that this is really valuable. The feedback that we're getting from folks is that these are really valuable, and so we want to continue those. But one thing that we would like is some input into what topics might be most effective and well received from the audience that we want to engage with. So if you have any of those topics, whether you're watching this live or whether you are watching this on record, we'd love to hear from you just in terms of what topics might be able to bring some additional value into what you're doing for your organization. So that's really the conclusion of today's webinar and of the webinar series. We appreciate everybody's time and look forward to hopefully connecting as you guys see fit and would like to. So with that, thanks again.